Cycling for me has never been about the bikes. They've only ever been the prerequisite tool. I do not see just a bike race, I see riders on heroic journeys and warriors doing battle. At one point, cycling was the most popular sport in Europe because newspapers told magnificent tales about epic races and crafted the great champions into legends. But with the advent of television, cycling lost some of its mystique, and that golden age of journalism and narration has perished. So now let us try to return some romance to the beautiful sport. Let us praise and give glory to phenomenal performances to be remembered for decades to come. Let us dwell on the moments that inspire and move us. Let us chronicle the rise and fall of heroes. Let us chart these life-changing journeys, these cycling odysseys. All right, welcome to another episode of the Cycling Odysseys. I'm your host, Patrick Santino. Thank you for joining me again. So this episode will be a rewind back to the 2020 Tour de France Stage 2. I'm working my way back through the blog post that I had from the tour. This is when I started the blog that accompanies this podcast, obviously. So the main portion of the show will just be a scripted narration of that blog post. But before that, I do the intro here, and then I do some commentary at the end. There's some intro episodes that give an idea of what I was doing. You can find those at the beginning of the whole podcast feed. Those give a good handle on what I'm doing. It took more than one episode because, I don't know, maybe I'm long-winded. That's the real answer. Anyways, though, 2020 tour, is it too early to relive it? Probably, but it was a really good tour, so why not? Especially Stage 2. Stage 2 was excellent. This is the Julian Alaphilippe win, in Nice. It was awesome. It was electric. Mark Hirschi was on his wheel, and we didn't know who he was. We were just like, oh, this guy's a worthy adversary. Or really, actually, we thought he was stepping up at that point. And Adam Yates is there, too. And, the whole day, it was just, talk about just the perfect banger opening that the tour was looking for. It was not a traditional start. You shouldn't really high mountains on day 2 because there were high mountains in the stage. Too soon for the tour, in my opinion, as an American telling the French how to run the race. But nonetheless, that they pulled it off. That was awesome. And Julian Alaphilippe, he's one of my favorite riders, as you'll hear in this. So without further ado, let's just jump into the stage. I'll give some commentary afterwards too. But this was stage 2 of the 2020 Tour de France. Let's rewind and relive all the glory. Are we really doing this again? Tour de France 2020, Stage 2, Nice to Nice, 186 kilometers. Julian Alaphilippe beats Mark Hirschi and Adam Yates in sprint to take stage honors and yellow after mountainous tour stage. Dear readers, are we really about to do this again, in any sort of capacity at all? Are we about to hop aboard the Julian Alaphilippe of DeCoined Quickstep roller coaster for another lap around France? Julian Alaphilippe has taken victory once again and grabbed back the maillot jaune that he looked oh so good in last year. The man who embodies France's greatest qualities is once more leading the tour. I tell you, dear readers, Dumas could not craft a more electric Frenchman. He is talented with such fine poise. He is daring, some say even swashbuckling. He never surrenders and always keeps high spirits even in the rare cases of defeat. He rides with panache. He's magnetic but good-natured. His style is on point, compact, and efficient. And once again, evidenced today, he rises to the occasion on the biggest of stages. When it comes to achieving success and glory, he is a grand master. I dare say if Athos, Porthos, and Aramis saw him, surely they would have recruited Alaphilippe over D'Artagnan to join their inseparable three. Julian Alaphilippe the Musketeer. I like it. I like it very much, dear readers. I was gathering my notes throughout the stage, preparing in case I would have to write about the historic area around Nice, with this day's climbs up the mighty Col de Torini and the signature Col d'Ez, and then somehow linked the race's surprisingly most famous son, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Perhaps it could have been interesting, but the race gifted us with better headlines. We knew, all of us knew, this stage was tailor-made for our Musketeer, if he was on top form. This actually was a real question, because Alaphilippe's Strada Bianchi was a wash as he punctured 6 times in that most brutal race of the year thus far. His attack up the Poggio in Milan-San Remo was so impressive, and perhaps there is no shame in losing a sprint to Wout van Aert of Jumbo-Visma, but many have thought 2019 Julian Alaphilippe would have finished off that one with a W. Same with his third place in the French Nationals. And then, quite frankly, he was off the pace at the Dauphiné, clearly not on top form. So, after a fierce pace up Nice's iconic Col d'Ez climb, and then down a dizzying yet breathtakingly beautiful descent back into Nice, we came to the crunch time of this stage. Up the uncategorized climb, the peloton began to go, and there came to the front of the reduced peloton Bob Jungels of De Koenig Quickstep, pacing his teammate, our musketeer, Alaphilippe. Here, on stage 2, the questions surrounding Julian Alaphilippe's form would be answered. Of course, he was here towards the front, ready to try something. He is a showman. This is what he does. Really, he had an unspoken obligation to fulfill to the cycling community. He had to attack. But would he pull it off? At the top of the uncategorized climb were 8, 5, and 2-second time bonuses for first, second, and third. Then a quick descent and flat sprint into the heart of downtown Nice. Quickstep had ridden many kilometers for him already. Now it was time to see Alaphilippe, the bookie's favorite, bring home the bacon. But could he? Or was someone stronger in the field? 4 kilometers from the top of the uncategorized climb, 12 kilometers remaining in the stage, Alaphilippe launched out of the peloton. He immediately formed a gap. Who could respond? Young Mark Hirschi of Sunweb was the only rider to hop onto his wheel. Within a kilometer, the two, though our musketeer did all of the pacing, had a 12-second gap on the peloton, who were not taking it easy. Yes, the question of who would win the stage was still high up in the air, but the question of whether Julian Alaphilippe was on good form was answered in that moment. Yes, now we could confirm Alaphilippe was on top form. Deja vu streamed over us. Ah, the way this musketeer attacked out of the peloton so far out. Why, it reminds me of his audacious attack last year into Epernay, where he donned the maillot jaune for the first time in his career. Are we watching a replay? Surely that is what we all thought in that moment, is it not? And then Adam Yates of Mitchelton Scott bridged across to Hirschi and our musketeer. Yates looked good, confident and comfortable, and even shared turns on the front with our musketeer. Hirschi, it must be noted, did no work in this group at all, a fair strategy in such elite company. The three built up a 21-second lead over the peloton. Where was Jumbo? Where was Ineos? After the carnage of yesterday and the mighty Colmay and Tarini climbs today, domestiques were hard to come by, it seems. Then they approached the crest where the line for the time bonuses was situated. Our musketeer wound up his sprint, but Yates was flying today, matching him pedal stroke for pedal stroke. And across the line, it was Yates who took the 8-second prize, Alaphilippe only 5 seconds. Echoes and visions of our run into Saint Etienne from last year flashed in our minds, when Thomas de Gent of Ladu Soudal soloed to the finish. But right behind him on the finishing straight were Thibaut Pinot of Groupama FDJ and our musketeer who had shot like bullets out of the peloton on a similar little climb containing such time bonuses. The two had worked together to steal almost half a minute on their GC favorites, putting Alaphilippe back into yellow for his legendary deep run of last year. It all comes back to you now, right, dear readers? But today, over the top, Hirschi was still in touch with Yates and Alaphilippe, and the three regrouped for the descent to the finish. Oh, what a descent it was! Is there any area in the world more beautiful for cycling than these cols around Nice? Truly, for me, dear readers, this area takes the blue ribbon for most beautiful scenery in the world. These towns built into the forested mountainsides and in between the ruins of ancient castles. The houses and chateaux precariously situated and perfectly constructed on the most scenic outcrops, the medieval chapels on the dazzling heights, and the beautiful vistas the coppers captured of the city below, nestled on the Mediterranean shore, illuminated by the golden hour rays of the sun. Yes, we were treated to all this today and more, for as I said, one final harrowing descent had to be made back into the heart of Nice. The winding narrow road plunged and zigzagged down the valley and past the outskirt homes of Nice. The hairpins were intense. Every rider was dialed in. Dear readers, I could have sworn Milan-San Remo was 3 weeks ago. You see what I mean? The deja vu of such a stage? This was a Poggio-esque descent. Our palms began to sweat. We could feel our hearts beating. We sat up in our seats. Yes, we had all watched the Musketeer go down such a descent before, to perfection when he won the 2019 Milan-San Remo in his electrifying fashion. But, as was said, he lost San Remo this year, just 3 weeks ago, by half a wheel. He's on better form now, but Yates looks good, and Hershey must be saving up for the sprint. And he's shown a quick pair of wheels at the finish before, we all thought. And what about the peloton behind? They will need good cooperation off the front to stay away. They have no time to play with. Credit to Adam Yates this day, because on the descent he did his fair share of the work, rotating with Alaphilippe like clockwork. Even to the last K, they continued sharing the work, for the peloton was bearing down. But with 700 meters to go, the Musketeer finished his turn and came off the front. Yates was forced into the lead, Alaphilippe on his wheel. Hershey sitting third like an assassin, eyeing them both. The cohesion had been broken. The catting and mousing was on, as Yates slowed the tempo as they passed the 600 meters to go sign. 500 meters, 400 meters. Yates was still stuck on the front. Alas, at this point, he probably knew he was about to get rolled. With 300 meters to go, the peloton was clearly breathing down their necks, but they had to leave the sprint late, for they were being hit by a block headwind. Was Alaphilippe waiting for Hershey to launch something? The Musketeer needed to do something unless he wanted to gift the win to the peloton. Finally, with 200 meters to go, the Musketeer launched. A strong move it was. He looked good, but the headwind was strong, and Hershey was not completely distanced. In fact, he got fully into the Musketeer's slipstream and almost came around him. Less than a wheel separated them at the finish, but Alaphilippe, the Musketeer, knew he had won. He lifted his right hand, kissed his index finger, and pointed to the sky. He sat up and celebrated. With a 10-second time bonus at the line, 15 seconds total was subtracted off his total time compared to Yates's 9 seconds. They and the GC favorites were all even on time to start the day. So with those time bonuses and Christoph minutes behind, the Musketeer donned yellow again. He was emotional at the line. He was tearing up during the winner's television interview. His dad had passed away in June. This win was dedicated to him. Surely the kiss of the finger and the pointing up was in recognition of him. Julian, I am sorry for your loss, but surely your father was looking down on you today. High above, he was pointing back down, telling all around him, "That's my son. Look at him. You have seen how hard he has worked, and now look at him, at the top of his sport, beloved by all of France. Congrats to him. Could a father be prouder?" No, congrats to you, Mr. Alaphilippe, for you raised such a son. So where does this leave us, dear readers? As I asked at the beginning, are we about to do this roller coaster all again? Let me say something we all know, but maybe has never been explicitly said. I speak for 100% of cycling fans when I say this. Julian Alaphilippe is part of that exclusive club to which only a handful of riders have a membership, where every day he wins is a great day. Everyone is in a better mood when they see an Alaphilippe win. They walk around a tiptoe taller for the rest of the day. This is objective fact for 2 reasons. First, we are happy for him because he is a good guy with an electric personality. And then second, the wins themselves are electrifying. Maybe one is impressive, maybe another is nail-biting, maybe a third one is mesmerizing. The majority of the time, they are all 3 at once. And now, dear readers, you remember the full context of the atmosphere of last year's tour. When the tour entered the Pyrenees, and Alaphilippe not only retained yellow, but unexpectedly extended his lead by winning the Pau time trial. Oh, remember how the fixed cameras captured the image of him bossing his way up the final hill, cutting right, down the finishing straight. He crossed the finish line, skidded to a halt, hopped off the bike, and bounced around, hugging his whole support crew. And then the next day, when he rode with the very best climbers and GC men to the top of the Tourmalet, the lord of all Pyrenean climbs. All the way to the Alps he wore the yellow jersey, capturing every heart in France. Alas, we knew he was cracking on the first Alpine stage as he was dropped a few kilometers from the summit of the Glibier. But the way he handled himself down the descent into the finish, how he caught his GC rivals silkily weaving his way between them like a sewing needle to the front of the group, and manhandled the rest of the descent like a heavy stone all the way down. And then the final great alas came the day after when he finally cracked beyond recovery on the Izuran. He was so close. 2 days from Paris. All of France behind him. 35 years they've been waiting. And here we are again. Will we be blessed and cursed to repeat this? How long will the stint in yellow be this year? The competition is as good and deep as it was last year, if not more so this year. And yet, you look at this course with its relentless ups and downs, one made for such an opportunist as our Alaphilippe. If ever he had a chance to finish off the job, this would be the year. But yet again, will the highest passes be too high for him? His team support is lacking again as well. I take a deep breath at the prospect of doing this again. Even though it is only stage 2, surely we all know he will be in yellow for more than a handful of days. I loved every minute of it last July, but it took such an emotional investment. Am I really prepared to handle that again for 3 weeks? Last year's tour was chaotic, nerve-wracking, breathtaking, and all-consuming. Do we really want another round of that? Oh, who am I kidding? Of course we do. Long live the Musketeer. All right. It's cool. So that was stage 2. Pretty fun times. First of all, it really was a great stage. Did I really think that Alaphilippe was going to take another deep run with the yellow jersey again? Honestly, maybe. Obviously, I was truly hoping for it. I think I thought if he could get past stage 8, because I thought the others were in a bag, if he could get past stage 8, he could make it to the third weekend, through 2 weeks. And then he would probably assuredly lose it there. It was my real thought. But as soon as he got in the yellow jersey, it was like, oh, well, now this blog post just writes itself. I mean, now we're set. We get to relive 2019 because he's just building on that with 2020. I mean, you saw how he weaved that in there. I mean, I still find that fun to recall. I would still happily sit down and rewatch the 2019 tour. That tour was so awesome, and it's all because of Alaphilippe. If you've listened to all the episodes so far, at some point I've definitely said Alaphilippe was like Hector of Troy. He was the great hero, but he was vanquished at the end. And he's not the first one at all, by any means, to do this in the Grand Tours. The first one I ever saw was Tommy Voeckler in 2011, was the real example where he was carrying the yellow jersey deep, and then he blew it at the end, but it was kind of inevitable. Just like Hector and Troy, I mean, it was inevitable that Achilles would defeat him one day, and that's what happened. That is what happened. Also, if you'll notice, I tried to I threw my hat in the ring to create my first nickname. I think Julian Alaphilippe's nickname should be the Musketeer. As if you read all the blog posts, or if you listen to all these tour rewind episodes, you'll see that I'll constantly refer to him as the Musketeer. I think that's an excellent nickname. It's mostly his goatee, but it's also, he lives up to it. He's got panache, he's swashbuckling. I mean, yeah, Musketeer. I feel like this is a match made in heaven. I don't know why. I hope I'm not the first one to come up with it. And that's not the first time I've hoped something in cycling where I hope I'm not the first to come up with it. And then that's really it is a thing. Okay. Also too. I was listening to this. These things, all right, so to have these things recorded, it still cracks me up. Like, again, it's still surreal that I'm even doing the cycling podcast, but I'm not tooting my own horn when I say this. I'm poking fun at myself when I say this. I still find it funny. It still literally laugh out loud cracks me up that when I start fictionally quoting people, especially, because it absolutely sounds ridiculous. Especially when I hypothetically quote the collective viewers who are watching the stage. I just assume, oh yeah, this is what we were all thinking, right? But nonetheless, that's what I do. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to do a couple team previews next, because I got some written up. A certain transfer of a certain tour revelation last year really threw a wrench in that team preview, but whatever. I'm rolling with it. I'll complain later within that actual one. If you want to send me an email, cyclingodysseys@gmail.com. I would love it if you wrote a 5-star review and if you subscribe to this podcast, because these episodes will come out at random. So why not just subscribe so that they just drop in right away? And a review, 5-star review, I'll read it out. And maybe eventually I'll get some prizes if we get enough reviews and it's worth giving out prizes for. Let's see what else. Twitter, you can follow me at Twitter, Cycling Odysseys just Cycling Odysseys, Patrick Santino. And yeah, the blog, so when I read the scripted part, if you want to follow along, you can go find them in the blogs at cyclingodysseys.com. There's the blog post there. Hopefully I post them in a timely fashion that you can read those as well. Or you could just read those and we can stop looking behind the curtain as I do this podcast with the little commentaries at the end. Because now you guys see what I'm actually like. Obviously I write totally different. And I still find it funny, and I can barely read how I write, because I get in character basically for writing, and so that means it's like, shoot, I gotta get in character when I read the thing. Anyways, though, this was another episode. Thank you for listening. Vive le cyclisme.